As a way to explore Wyoming's executive branch, let's go to the e-site for Wyoming's government. Notice I'm at www.wyoming.gov. And you have a number of tabs you can go to. Let's go to elected officials. Wyoming's elected officials begin with, of course, Gov. Dave. Governor Dave Friedenthal. He's term limited, so he's not going to be able to run again in 2010. The governor of the state of Wyoming is, in political science terms, actually a weak governor because he has to share executive powers with four other members of the executive branch who do not have to listen to anything that the governor says. But the governor is in charge of the state's budget. That's probably his biggest job as the elected governor of the state of Wyoming, presenting the budgets to the legislature for biennium budgets. He's also in charge of the Wyoming State National Guard, chairman of the Farm Loan Board, a number of different commissions. You can see in Gov. Dave's biography the different commissions that he's in charge of. He's also the chair of the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, the monies that are set aside by the state of Wyoming for a rainy day. And all these elected officials, very quickly, the Constitution requires that they have to be 30 years of age and a resident in the state of Wyoming for at least 5 years. But you also have, Gov. Dave also has his own website. Which you could explore if you wanted to go to Gov. Dave's website. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like after November. Going back to the elected officials, many of you have already visited Secretary of State Maxfield's website. You could go there if you hit this hyperlink. But the Secretary of State for the state of Wyoming is in charge of all elections in the state of Wyoming. And as a secondary position, Secretary of State's in charge of incorporation of business interests in the state of Wyoming. Continuing down, Rita Meyer, who's running for governor this year in 2010. Rita Meyer is the state auditor. The state auditor simply does general accounting for the state of Wyoming, the monies that are spent. This is the means by, most governments you have one person in charge of making expenditures and vouchering for those expenditures and keeping a paper trail of what is being spent. That is the state auditor's job, and that's Rita Meyer's job. But she performs a check and balance on Joseph B. Meyer, who is the state treasurer. Treasurer takes monies in, receives funds from the national government and what might happen with conditions of aid and grants to the state of Wyoming, receives funds from the state sales tax and the state minerals tax. But Joseph Meyer's position is to take all those monies in and account for how they've come in. And again, as a check on the treasurer to make sure everything's being taken care of money-wise, state auditor's job is to make sure that the monies are properly vouchered. Education in the United States is the job of the states, the 50 states. The federal government may provide monies, No Child Left Behind Act, and so on and so forth, but curriculum is the job of the states. So every state has a Secretary of Education, and James McBride is the Superintendent of Public Instruction. And he's in charge of K-12 curriculum. The state decides the curriculum for the different school districts. It's his job to make sure that the different school districts are keeping to the state curriculum. You have a number of alternative schools in the state of Wyoming. It's the job of James McBride as superintendent of public instruction and his department to make sure that those alternative schools are staying within the state curriculum. And as you could read in this biography, you could see that the Wyoming State Superintendent of Public Instruction is also very much involved with the University of Wyoming. And as a result, the University of Wyoming and what they have to decide on what's going to be the requirements for different degrees. By extension, Superintendent of Public Instruction is also